Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
And in this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, well, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hello, my beautiful friend. It is Christy here. I am so excited to announce a very, very special gift that I'm offering all gals who pre-order my book, Love Life Sober, a 40-day alcohol fast. I am going to be personally coaching you through this book for 6 weeks, starting September 30th in the But Jesus Drink Wine community. When you pre-order the book, you'll get a special invitation to join us for free for 3 months. That's a $72 value. Every single Monday, I am going to coach you through this book so that you don't have to do this alone. That was the whole reason I wanted to write this book, is so that you wouldn't feel alone. You'll be able to gather with a group of like-minded women every single Monday, starting September 30th when you pre-order the book. There's a link in the show notes, and at that link, you'll find a place to pre-order the book, and you'll find a link to jump into the community for 3 months for free, which includes 6 weeks of coaching with yours truly through the book, Love Life Sober, a 40-day alcohol fast. I cannot wait to meet you. Now here's this week's episode.
Hello, good morning, y'all.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Hi, welcome, Sherry Hoppen. We are so excited, ecstatic. So what's another synonym? Pumped. So ready to go. Let's go. Sherry Hoppen is our special guest today. She lived in West Michigan her entire life and has traveled extensively throughout the U.S. and internationally. She has never lived more than 5 miles from her childhood home. She worked in various areas of a pregnancy care ministry for over 10 years, first as a volunteer, then as an employee. And she and her husband have 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren and love being active in whatever they do, like getting your hair wet in the pool, Sherry, right? With your grandkids.
Yeah, absolutely.
As empty nesters, they enjoy cycling and finding new trails to explore together. Sherry is an avid reader who loves writing, decorating, and time spent on Michigan's beautiful beaches. And in 2016, Sherry launched She Surrenders, a ministry designed to encourage freedom from addiction with biblical truths, a deepening relationship with the Lord, and the fellowship found in a healing community. And we are just so glad you're here today because you have gone before us and you have all this wisdom to share with us, and you have a story. And that is what we also love bringing to this podcast, is stories of women who have done the things that a lot of us have done, so that our listeners can see little pieces of themselves in those. So welcome, Sherry.
Thank you. And what a polite way to say I'm older than you. Those have gone before us. So that's good. That's good. I don't know if I'll ever get to use that one with someone, but yes, I'm older than you. But you girls are delightful. So I'll let you get away with that one. But yeah, so you hit all the main points. You want to know a fun fact about my last name, Hoppen?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, we said I've never lived more than 5 miles from where I grew up, and neither has my husband. But we met at the good old county fair here, another few miles from our so beautifully redneck, as I like to say. But his name was, I saw it on the back of his coat, Letterman coat. It's not quite grease. It's almost. And my last name was Hop, H-O-P. And I thought, that could be interesting.
That's so cool.
You could
have like double-barreled it, as they say over here in the UK. You could have been like Hoppen.
Yes. When Facebook started, I was like, I could never hyphenate. Now I'm like, that'd be fun. Maybe I'll do that. But I'm at the ripe old age of 15. I thought maybe that would be fun if we got married. And I remember laying awake the whole night after I met him thinking, wouldn't that be weird? Hop to Hoppen. And here we are. Here we are. So anyway.
I love it. I love it. We should have everybody start with a fun fact. That was super fun. I'm not sure everyone has a good story.
I always have one for sure. I have many more, but that's the easy ones. Yeah. So yeah, always lived here in West Michigan, grew up in a small town and loved living here. I felt like life was very charming, and I thought that everybody had this life. as far as I was concerned. My friends lived close, family lived close. I rode my bike everywhere as a kid, and you rode in the summer. That's how you got around. And there was no fear of where you were going to ride. You could be gone. I could be gone all day and show up for dinner. And my mom would be like, "Where were you?" And it wasn't in a bad way. It was just what you did. And I rode my bike to the library every Saturday with pink sponge rollers in my hair because that's what you did on Saturday, and loaded up my backpack and started reading for the week. I was that kid. Yeah. So I had a very good childhood. And fast forward, when I was 16, my parents did get divorced, which was ugly. It's not anything you expect. I think it was a shocker to my siblings and I because you sense that things are not good in the home. But when it came to that was hard. And like I said, I'm now dating my husband or soon to be husband. And so you're looking at things through different lenses. And I felt like I was ashamed of what my family was going through and that I needed to hide that. And I think that was my first real experience with lying and not telling people the truth about what was going on in our home. And there was other things going on too. But yeah, so my parents ended up getting divorced at about the same time my husband and I decided to get married, which was right after I graduated from high school. So as a parent, I would have probably shot my husband and sent me away, probably to the UK or very far away, because you're getting divorced and watching your children repeat the same thing that you did. And so we were fine. We did it. And a couple years later, we started having kids and we had a boy and a girl. And by the age of 22, I was ready to be done having kids and move on. And so we had a very young family. And drinking was not a big part of our lives then. I remember that people would come over and we drank while we played cards and things like that, or just hung out. But it wasn't a big focus. I wasn't afraid of it. And it was never an issue. And fast forward again, when I was 28, my younger brother was killed in a drunk driving accident. And he was in the car with his best friend, and they were both drunk. And that by far is the biggest blow in life I have ever experienced. Nothing in life ever can prepare you for something like that. We'd been sailing along pretty unobstructed in life as far as crisis goes. And that rocked my world. And he was a great guy. And he was just fun. He was 4 years younger than me, so he was 24. He was my husband's best friend as well, and our favorite uncle. And there was definitely a hole in our lives. And I was very depressed after that. And I felt like the rest of the world was moving on, and I wasn't, and should have gotten help, but I didn't. And this is the part where one would expect me to say that I started drinking heavily, but I didn't. I remember drinking on occasion a few times to get drunk, but I feel like God stepped in and tried to keep that from blowing up then. Like, he's like, we can still work around this. And I got pregnant by accident. And yes, I know how it works. I know how it works. We had 2 kids and all that, but I'd gone on an antidepressant. And that was before they had all this out there about how that can affect birth control. So it was a total surprise, but it was a beautiful surprise because it gave us something to look forward to instead of looking back. And I didn't drink, and that was gone. And probably for 6, 7 years after she was born, it wasn't an issue. And then it just slowly crept into my life. There isn't a moment that I can say, boom, there it was. There's a couple things that I can say accelerated it. Environment would be one of them. We had a seasonal place in the summer where we would go. I would pull through those gates and I could just feel like my mouth would water. Ooh, it's happy hour. But happy hour started earlier, and somehow happy hour could start on a Wednesday instead of a Friday. And it just all merged. But other people would stop and I wouldn't. And the 10 years that we were there, or 12 years, something like that, it escalated. And that's where my drinking really took off, started to really hurt our lives. And in there, I am working at the pregnancy center that you mentioned. And so I'm working in Christian ministry. We're active in the church. We went to the Reformed church. My husband's an elder, and our daughter's at a Christian college. Let's see what else. A football mom. I wore all the hats, and I made sure nobody saw what was going on, which if they opened my purse, most often they would see a water bottle with vodka in it because I was drinking all the time. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out not the why of why I was drinking, but pretty much how to do life with it because I had no idea how to get out of it or what that would even look like. That was a foreign thought to me. I knew that people would go to AA and quit. I had family members that had been very hurt by alcohol and they had gone to AA. And I was terrified of that. And I was also too proud to admit it because I should have known better. I'd been warned. And I didn't pay attention to those warnings. My husband and he's very aware of what's going on. And it was definitely an issue between us, and our marriage was crumbling. And in 2010, he and my son were on a business trip that he took him on instead of me because it was a business trip where there was going to be a lot of social hours with drinking, and I had not handled those well in the past. So I stayed home and I promised him I would not drink while he was gone, which I'd said before, but for some reason I meant it. Oh, and I also stayed home for 8th grade graduation for our youngest, which to this day I hope she remembers that mom stayed home for 8th grade graduation. So important now that she's almost 30. But I didn't drink. And one day I did get called into work. I wasn't actively working at the pregnancy center anymore, but they were shorthanded. So I went in as a volunteer that day to just answer phones. And I took some messages upstairs to the executive director, and he looked at me and he just said, "Where have you been hiding?" And I'd never said anything to anybody before about what was going on. And for some reason, the way he asked it, or I don't know, I just broke down and like word vomit. Like I'm drinking and blah, blah, blah. I can't stop. And something in me said, stop. And the gifted liar that I was turned not been drinking for 5 days, was like 5 months, and we're working on it. And I turned the story around very quickly because I was terrified that I just let my secret out. And I thought he was going to say something. He just looked at me for a while, very uncomfortable. And he said, what I thought he was going to say was, here's some scripture. Here's a friend. Here's a meeting you should go to, like pastors do, because he was a pastor, or he's going to pray with me. And he said, I think you need to do the Ride for Life. We need more women. And I just looked at him and I said, no, I don't think so. And the Ride for Life was this insane bike trip that they had just started the year before. And the previous year, they had gone from Michigan to Baltimore, Maryland, and that on road bikes. So this is a crazy thing. And people would say, how are they doing? I was in the office that week. I'd be like, I don't know, because I think it's really stupid. It's really crazy. I have no interest in that. But that year, they were going from Michigan to Texas. And I'm in no shape to be a biker at that point. I got to tell you, when you're drinking a lot, so I'm overweight, very non-athletic. I had a Kmart 10-speed somewhere in the garage, but it had been used for camping to pull the burley with all your beach stuff down there. That's it. That's it. And long story short, it's all in my book, but 51 days later, thanks to God waking me up every night, instead of this 3 a.m. wake up from drinking that we all experience, I was angry because I kept getting woken up, but it was God. And I would wake up thinking, what? And it was this little voice going, should I do it? And I'm like, do what? And it was about that bike ride. And after my husband came home, I said, this is crazy. And I started telling him about it. And he said he was going to be my out, like my last. He's just going to think this is another one of my crazy ideas. Because believe me, I tried everything but the right way to quit drinking. I'm a runner, not in the physical sense, but I'll try everything my way first. And he said, no, wait a minute, you got to do it. And I was like, what? And he said, you told me you were looking for something to escape from addiction that would help you physically, mentally, and spiritually. This checks all the boxes. And I couldn't argue with that. like, why just sat back and watched this movie play out of me going to pick out a bike and this bike short. Have you seen them? These bike shorts. The first time I put them on and came out of the house, like I think in my book, sausage stuffed into casing is how I felt. And he tried to take a picture. And I said, "You take a picture, you'll never see your children again." That's exactly what I said to him. And I went 5 miles and was like, wow, if I was doing the trip to Texas, only 995 more to go. And it leaves in 51 days. That's exactly how much time I had. Somehow I did it. But I drank a lot less in those 51 days because I was terrified. I was terrified I was going to let down these people. I wouldn't be able to keep up. Granted, we weren't like this professional bike team you see all in sync going down the road, but they'd been practicing a lot longer than me. And about 3 days before we left, I let fear give in. And I went on a 3-day bender of binge drinking, and I showed up to leave more hungover than I'd ever been in my life. And I spent the first 3 days of that bike trip detoxing and not letting anybody know. And
Babe.
it was a hell I never ever want to experience again. So I did that ride. Spoiler alert. I didn't get sober for 3 more years, and it took a couple more bike rides. And really, the bike ride had nothing to do with it except for the fact that I grew more on every one of those trips, learned more about myself. But ultimately, in the end, it wasn't the bike trips that saved me. But I did learn so much about myself. And one of the things I learned was I could have fun, I could be fun, and not need alcohol to do it. But it was like being in a bubble. You're safe. There's no option to drink on these trips. There's no way. Even if I wanted, I suppose I could have gotten really sneaky and gone for a little bike ride off to the side at night or something, but there was nothing in me that wanted to do that. And I loved these people that I was with. They were just good people that knew nothing about me or my past. And they were Christian people, and I just loved them. I wanted to be like them. And the best part was is they loved me for who I was. Didn't know anything about my past. But that went on for 3 more years until November of 2013. Many things led to that weekend, mostly the demise of myself and how bad my drinking was. I believe that weekend, I planned to drink all weekend. My husband was going to be alone, and drinking wasn't going well, which might sound strange to someone if they're not familiar. I couldn't seem to drink to get drunk. And I know now it was alcohol poisoning. I was smart enough to call a friend that I had no business calling. It's her off my list a long time because she had confronted me about my drinking. And if you confronted me about my drinking, you were of no use to me. And I didn't have many friends left. And she came over and she sat with me that entire day and made sure I was okay. Made me promise I was going to see my husband Craig when he got home. But that still took me a few more days. And on November 6th, he left for work that morning. And I said, I need to talk to you tonight because I'd been trying to drink. That sounds really strange, but I'd been trying to drink yet the last couple of days because I was detoxing very badly, shaking. Every time I tried to drink, though, my throat would just close up and would throw. And I spent that whole day sitting in my living room with my journal and some music on and talking to God and just crying all day. I thought I've surrendered so many times. Why aren't you helping me? Why aren't you saving me? At one point, and I'm not like, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not like a holy roller, lift your hands up, and I'm not a showy Christian. I don't want to offend anybody by saying that, but I'm just not, I'm not the hallelujah shouter, but I am on my face on my living room floor. And I'm the kind of person before that would have been like, if anybody sees me, I'm so embarrassed. And I'm alone at home, but I didn't care. I knew God was there. And I cried and I cried out to him and I said, surrender. And this time I said something else. And I said, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want. I'd never said that before. I surrendered with conditions. Because as long as nobody finds out, or if I could just have a drink now and then so I look normal or I can be normal, you name it. This time I said, I'll do whatever you want. And when I stood up, I knew that I would never drink again. And this is from a severe drinker. This is not drinking too much wine at book club during the week. And I can't describe how I knew that, but I was extremely sad. I felt like I just had been told my best friend had died. But I knew it was never be an option again. And I'm not saying I was never tempted again or that I would never want to, but I knew I would never entertain the idea again, no matter how bad it was. And that night, my husband, he came home, told him what had happened, and we knew we were going to talk that night and make a decision as far as moving forward ourselves. And he said, I've heard this all before, and I don't blame him. He was angry when I told him about the weekend. He was, you could have died. You could have died. And what would your children, they'd have to live with that. And he's so angry, he could hardly talk. And he said, after a while, he said, I just need some time. And I went to him after about an hour and he said, here's the deal. If you drink again, you're going to rehab with no pushback. It's accepted. You're going to rehab. And if you choose not to go to rehab, I'm leaving you. And I said, that's if I drink again. And he said, yeah. And I said, game on. You should buy a breathalyzer because I don't ever want you to doubt or question if I've been drinking because you're never going to have to make that choice. I said, I'll never have to make that choice. And he didn't. There was never, ever a question. Was it easy? Oh, no, it wasn't easy, but it was true. And I lived it. And slowly, very slowly, over the next year, even two, I did a lot of healing. We spent a lot of quiet time together, quit trying to pretend to be social, and I wasn't telling anybody. And slowly, God drew me out of there through that pregnancy center I used to work with, and they were having an event called Get Real. And a person that was one of my best friends that still worked there, she was in charge of this event. And she said, I need you to speak at this event, Get Real. And I'm like, I'm not a speaker. What do you want me to talk about? And she said, your recovery story, your surrender. I said, oh no, I'm not talking about that. And she said, Sherry, you told me that you told God, I'll do whatever you want. And I said, that's great. I told God that, not you. And I said, I'm sorry I ever told you that. I knew she was right. So I would rather have gone far away and I could have spoken to a football stadium full of thousands and thousands of women instead of this church 10 miles from my home in a workshop with 30 women in it. But I did it. And by the time I got home, I had an email and said, I was in your workshop. Can we talk? Me too. And that was my first connection. I'm so grateful. And from there, I spoke again, made more connections. I started a little blog that I hope no one would ever read. And then a website, or it just snowballed into writing and a book and a ministry. And here we are today. And a lot happened in between, but that's pretty much my story.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Responding to the heartfelt requests from you, our wonderful, wonderful listeners, for a deeper sense of community, we are so excited to introduce y'all to the But Jesus Drink Wine community.
Get ready to be part of an exclusive experience where you'll join a sisterhood of kindred spirits on a transformative journey of faith, sobriety, and personal growth.
You'll gain access to our private community, a place where deep connections can flourish among women who share your aspirations of strengthening faith in Christ and breaking free from alcohol.
But wait, there's more. We'll host regular connection calls to facilitate fellowship with like-minded gals, no matter where you stand on your alcohol or faith journey. Whether you're seasoned or just curious, you are very warmly welcomed here.
Prepare to be inspired by guest expert sessions and engaging Q&As that explore the essential topics for your sobriety, faith, and holistic wellness journey.
Don't miss out on securing your spot. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
We can't wait to see your beautiful face in the But Jesus Drink Wine community. It's so beautiful. I especially love, or it's beautiful and it's heavy too. I can see the beauty in it, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't so much like just hard as part of that. But I love how you describe that final day where you had surrendered with condition to the Lord before, and that day was different. And so what came to my mind was that like it was like a full heart surrender, because we have clients who are like, I don't think God's ever going to take this from me, and I'm praying about it all the time, and I'm giving it all to him. And it just hit me when you were talking. I think it ends up being that like it's a full heart surrender the time that it's supposed to be a full heart surrender. I don't know, but can you speak a little bit more about the difference between the other times that you had surrendered and with condition and that day?
Oh, for sure. What it comes down to, I didn't know this at the moment. I've done a lot of thinking and praying and speaking and teaching about it, that you can say, I surrender, but God's not going to do the work for you. It's, I surrender, and now you better get busy, because God's given us a lot of tools here on earth to make our recovery happen. If you're just going to sit and hope that the pain goes away, it's not going to happen. And I sat in pain for a long time, but finding a community like you guys or my resources, that is so important. But what I most related to biblically is the story of the woman in the Bible so she was bleeding for years and years, and she just wanted to touch his coat. And she just wanted to touch it and be healed. And he felt her touch his coat, and he wanted accountability. He turned around and said, who touched my coat? And she was healed. And for years, that's all I wanted. I would say to him, why can't you just heal me? I just want to touch. She worked hard to get to him. We're women here. We know what they're talking about with the bleeding. She's in a crowd, and I'm sorry, there's not campus like there was then, or like we have now. I'm older. I have no idea if that's even, I don't know. We're not going to go there. But whatever they had, embarrassed. She was probably smelly. It was a horrible experience. She did the work to get to him. When the same vein as the man that cried every day because he couldn't get in the pool quick enough to be healed. And he complained about it. And Jesus says, you could do this. Your friends can help you. You can do this. Every single story that Jesus has, there's still work involved. He doesn't wave a magic wand. There's something that you have to do. So looking at what that is important. And I didn't know what that was when I said I surrendered, but I did know the way I'd surrendered before wasn't cutting it.
Yeah.
He wanted more. So you have to understand, what is that more? You didn't get into the situation, in my case, alcoholism, being a slave to a substance every day. That didn't happen overnight. As I share my story, I look back and it was a slow fade. The devil was, planting seeds here and there, and I ignored that. I watered them instead of letting them be weeds and pulling them. I knew better. I knew there was addiction in my family. I ignored that. I said, I'm stronger than that. I defied that. The times I got drunk after my brother, alcohol killed my brother. And yet I still think I'm stronger than that. I had many warnings that I ignored. And God's still saying it. It was not too late. Even after all those warnings, it's still not too late. But it took you work to get here, and it's going to take work to get out of it.
So good.
Can you speak a little bit? We were chatting about this before we hit record, about why the conversation around alcohol is so hard and heavy for gals in the church.
Yeah. If I go back to, first of all, I think it's getting a little better.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's great, but I think it's getting a little better. We're not talking about it in church like I would like it to be yet, but think that we, as Christian women, there's this extra layer of shame. And this is how I felt, was along with just being a woman, a wife, a mom, but you add Christian to that, and shouldn't I have known better?
Yeah.
That's what I think the world is looking at. Oh, Christian.
Yep.
Shouldn't you have known better? What about your God? Where was your God? And to think about explaining that, I don't have an explanation, at least at that time. And that was really hard. And I often say that going to church was hard. And I sat every Sunday in the pew of shame when my family was there to worship, and I couldn't even raise my head because I used to feel really close to God in church. And now I didn't even want to, I didn't even want to look up. I didn't want to hear the sermon. I felt like everything that was being said was like pointed at me. And I did feel alone. I was sure there was no one else in that church that we'd been a part of for so long that was going through what I was. And that was really hard to accept. And there was also hurt because people did know what was going on. And nobody, I don't know how I would have felt had they come to me. That's probably the place I was in, but afterwards, maybe would have
Yeah.
been nice. But nobody came to my husband and said, "How are you doing?" Or my kids. It was pretty, I believe that over half the church probably knew. But I think that we need to embrace this addiction in our church, just like we do. If it was on the prayer line that I had breast cancer, there'd be a casserole on my doorstep and I'd be on the prayer line every day. And that's the beauty of the fellowship of the church and the care of a Christian circle. But I've been disappointed by the church many times not wanting to talk about it. And that's really hard. And I'm not sure how to change that. I have suggestions if they're willing to listen, but they don't seem to want to listen too much yet. And I'm not talking about changing anything. My best idea is that to have a woman in place that they call when someone like myself would come to a pastor or anybody and say, "Is there anybody that can help this woman?" Yeah, here's a number of a Christian woman that we call that she can just talk to. It's not, "Oh, you should go to an AA meeting or send her to a meeting by herself." Or most pastors aren't equipped to counsel someone in addiction, and it's uncomfortable. So that's my first suggestion. That would just be a huge way to help. But I don't think we're there yet.
You've created this incredible ministry, though, out of it. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You are now the gal to call, right? If it's just getting the word out. Yeah.
It's getting the word out. Yeah. So She Surrenders came out of a place of finding my community. I started, I'd say selfishly, but not in a negative way. I couldn't find other women in my shoes. And in my prayer life, I would just be like, "God, I'm getting brave." And I would talk to these women through email and I'd be like, "Hey, do you want to meet?" Or when we're local, and it was like, "Oh no, let's not go that far." Or "Let's meet, but an hour from here. I don't want anybody to see us together." That would happen. And that is, I will say, your generation especially, I'm in awe. You guys are so much more public and willing to get rid of the isolation and clearing away the shame and the hiding so much quicker. Kudos. But 8, 9 years ago, it was really hard. So Zoom was a new thing and I just put it out there on my Facebook page and on my website eventually that on Monday nights I was going to have this little meeting. And the first time one other person showed up, and then there was just three of us for a long time. And those two and then four, they're all with me yet today, and they're very helpful with the group now. And we meet on Monday nights. It just snowballed, and people come and go. But the only requirements are that you want to recover with your faith and you have committed to a life of sobriety. And yes, I understand relapse, but come back and say you relapsed. And what can I do different next time? Let us walk with you through that. You don't have to do this alone. And our meetings are faith-based, but we talk about whatever you want to. So that started there. And then also the need we felt a rehabilitation center that's faith-based. And my husband and I launched a house recovery, which is a rehab facility here in Western Michigan. It is faith-based recovery for women. It's a 40-day inpatient program that's launching this fall.
Oh my
Ribbon
God.
cutting. Ribbon cutting is October 8th. That's the first time I've said that out loud anywhere, but
That's so exciting.
yeah. So that's super exciting. And it's October 8th will be the 30th anniversary of my brother's
Oh,
passing. So it's super special. And it says, that message says, addiction doesn't win. You tried to take us down, but it's not bringing my brother back, but we're fighting back. And our family has really gotten on board with doing this together. My daughter-in-law, who has an addiction story of her own, never saw that one coming, is my right hand. And this has been 20 months in the process to get this open. So it's been a huge undertaking. But God, when I was talking about peace right before we came on, I've been peaceful in this whole process, whether it's writing the curriculum, it's a totally different program like no other. I don't ever doubt myself until I lose my peace. And then I have to sit down and say, God, what am I doing? What am I going in the wrong direction? But as long as I have peace in what I'm doing, I know it's what God is calling me to. That's a message I want to share with women. There's such a better life waiting for you. You can quit drinking without God, 100%. You can quit and live your life, but there's more. There's more. Quit drinking, find your faith, and his plans for you are unbelievable. But you can't find out what those are if you stay stuck.
so good. So good. I
Yeah.
got
But
emotional hearing the date, and that's just so special.
it was a trial because, yeah, I did too. But I'm like, I have to really work hard at keeping that together that night too. Yeah, it's going to be a really special night. And I'm spending so many hands that have gone into making this really happen. And we're not in the business of doing anything other than giving new life and giving women the ability to wake up every day and say, I'm a new creation. I am a new creation, and sending them home into a family that's a whole new creation. Because everybody's got to heal. Everybody in the family. I think one of the biggest problems when women quit drinking, whether they go to rehab or not, is they're the only ones expected to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
The whole family needs to figure it out, whether it's a small child that's wondering or needs the assurance that they didn't do anything wrong. And they're worried if they do something wrong, mom's going to go away again or mom's going to start drinking. We want the whole family to heal and finding that help. We have a resource woman that does just that. Wherever you're from, she's going to find that in your hometown for you and be in contact with the family for aftercare. When it's called Selah House Recovery. And when you leave your community that you've been with, you get to keep meeting every week via Zoom, and you won't lose touch because we believe community is one of the most important components in your recovery. So that's just, there's so many, I don't like the word tentacles, but it is what it is. I don't like creatures. So yeah, but there's so many tentacles that come off this and are so important to make it all happen for success for the woman that needs to be there, wants her life, or I don't even like to say want their life back, wants a new life.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you give our gals, our listeners, one tiny new action that they might take after listening to your story?
Yes. One of my favorite things, I talk about it in our group a lot, is when you're tempted to go back, think about that relationship as an old boyfriend and don't glamorize it. It really sucked. That relationship was horrible. And write the breakup letter. Write the breakup letter when you quit and pull it out when you're tempted to drink again. Because we tend to glamorize what we had, and it's so not what it was. We like to go back because nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Just like those relationships that we think, oh, he was good to me. No, he wasn't. He wasn't any better to you than alcohol. So
Yeah.
it's not going to work this time. So don't entertain the idea have your list ready of reasons you shouldn't get back together. If you're still feeling weak, use your other resources to keep going. Pray about it. Call a friend. Find your community back. All the things. But I think that thinking of it as a relationship you don't want to get back into is really powerful.
Yeah. So powerful. Can you tell everyone where to find you and about your podcast? And we'll put all the links in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So everything is on shesurrenders.com, including my social media, information about my book, Sober Cycle, Pedaling Through Recovery One Day at a Time. Even though I don't pedal near as much as I used to, pretty much to Sail House and back, which is a round trip of 5 miles right now. That's changed. And Sail House Recovery is about the facility and keeping you up to date on that. But that link is also on shesurrenders.com. So if you go there, it's all there.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share and keep doing what you guys are doing because it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Sherry. What a blessing.
All right, gals, we will see you next Monday.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com and be sure to follow us over on Instagram, Love Life Sober, and I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites, meethollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe to our pod so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you, and we'll see you next Monday.